Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining today's call. My name is Ryan Tarkowski. I'm with the Communications Office of Pennsylvania State Police. Before we begin, I just want to give a rundown of the speakers for today. We'll have Pennsylvania Capitol Police Superintendent Joe Jacob, Pennsylvania State Police Deputy Commissioner of Operations Lieutenant Colonel Scott Price, and Harrisburg Police Commissioner Thomas Carter. We do ask that each speaker pauses for just 2 or 3 seconds before they begin speaking to get it, because we're holding this virtually, gives everybody a chance to unmute. After remarks conclude, we'll open up the floor for reporter questions in the order that we received RSVPs today. You'll see the on deck reporter in the chat feature, and I'll announce the reporter's name and send you the unmute request to ask your question. Please do remember to mute yourself after you have had your question answered. We also ask that you don't use the chat feature to ask questions because we aren't able to answer questions via chat. We have dozens of RSVPs today, and we'll get to as many reporters as we can. But now we'll turn it over to Pennsylvania Capitol Police Superintendent Joe Jacob.
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Jacob, Superintendent for the Pennsylvania Capitol Police. A week ago in our nation's capital, we witnessed a level of chaos, destruction, and unrest never seen before. As a result of those senseless acts of civil disobedience and violence, the Pennsylvania Capitol Police are now forced to prepare to take the appropriate and necessary actions to prevent that type of situation from occurring here at Pennsylvania's Capitol Complex. Pennsylvania Capitol Police is an accredited law enforcement agency of more than 100 officers with full arrest powers that investigates all reported crimes within the jurisdiction of state-owned properties and buildings in Harrisburg and Scranton. The force maintains a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week presence in Harrisburg, where we are responsible for ensuring the safety and well-being of those who work in and visit our Capitol complex. In light of the possibility of civil unrest, the Capitol Police have taken the following actions to be prepared. We've increased our visibility with members of our special response team now patrolling the Capitol grounds in their full SRT gear. These are highly trained individuals who specialize in crisis response situations, tense situation de-escalation, and other special response tactics. They have trained with the FBI and are a key part of our operations under circumstances like the ones we have the potential to face over the next week. We've been connected with our state, local, and federal law enforcement intelligence agencies to monitor any suspected situation that would demand our attention. As our intelligence develops, we have plans in place to close certain roadways through the Capitol complex, such as Commonwealth Avenue. It's our understanding that the Pennsylvania National Guard will activate approximately 400 members. We expect to have some of those here at the Capitol, but the number and how they're going to be used has yet to be determined. As in the past, if any issues arise, we will utilize resources from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Harrisburg Police Department, Dauphin County Field Force, the Pennsylvania Attorney General's Office, and of course, our federal state law enforcement agency, the Pennsylvania State Police. As evidenced this past summer with civil rights and pre-open Pennsylvania rallies, we have been able to successfully coordinate our security activities and mitigate the potential for violence or serious injury on the public and law enforcement side of these gatherings. We are facing never before experienced situations, but we have the extensive experience among the Pennsylvania Capitol Police and the partnering agencies, especially the Pennsylvania State Police, who are our key resource support. With that said, I'd like to introduce Pennsylvania State Police Lieutenant Colonel Scott Price to discuss the activities from the Pennsylvania State Police perspective.
Thanks very much, Superintendent Jacob. The events of January 6th, to reiterate what the chief said, were abhorrent, and the violence and destruction perpetrated by the rioters was wholly unacceptable. Among the many responsibilities of the Pennsylvania State Police is support of our law enforcement partners during large-scale events which require pooling of assets of multiple agencies. In an effort to ensure the safety of the Commonwealth and her residents and avert the sort of chaos observed in recent weeks, we are providing support to our colleagues at the Pennsylvania Capitol State Police to include, but not limited to, obviously personnel assets. In addition to troopers specifically assigned to posts in and around the Capitol, troopers from throughout Area 2, to include our troops A, G, and H, have been placed in an elevated alert status to ensure immediate response capabilities as necessary. We're going to provide aviation support, including fixed-wing aircraft, helicopters, and several department drones, which will be available to provide aerial observation platforms. Our Pennsylvania State Police mounted units consist of troopers on horseback, specifically trained and especially effective when crowd control is required. Our hazardous device and explosive section, commonly known as a bomb squad, will be on site to inspect and potentially render safe any explosive devices or suspicious packages or objects which might be found in or around the Capitol, or to potentially respond to similar incidents in the curtilage areas. Finally, our department's highly trained special emergency response teams to consist of quick reaction teams, negotiators, and as previously mentioned, drone support. All of these resources are available for immediate deployment at the Capitol, with additional resources strategically staged elsewhere throughout the Commonwealth to respond if needed. Understanding the critical importance of clear communications networks and ongoing collaboration, PSP supports law enforcement through the sharing of information and operational intelligence. This is exemplified by state police participation in joint terrorism task forces, which streamlines communication with federal law enforcement agencies and facilitates the timely exchange of information. Furthermore, Pennsylvania Criminal Intelligence Center, known as PASIC, based in Harrisburg, serves as an information hub for federal, state, and local law enforcement. It is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with trained analysts who provide law enforcement with intelligence and investigative information. PASIC also maintains a threat analysis unit to provide real-time assessments of emergent threats to infrastructure. Perhaps most importantly, the citizens we serve should rest assured that the PA Capitol Police has the full support of Pennsylvania State Police and access to the significant resources we bring to bear as we work together to keep our capital safe. PSP personnel continuously monitor all threats against the Commonwealth and are on alert and prepared to respond to any incident as necessary. Finally, I'd like to say citizens play a vital role in our efforts to keep the Commonwealth free from harm and serve as a force multiplier as our eyes and ears in the community. If you observe something that seems suspicious, doesn't feel right, or appears to suggest nefarious activity, we encourage you to report it to law enforcement. Through our See Something, Say Something program, you can email tips@pa.gov or download the See Something, Send Something app, which allows you to submit tips via your smartphone. Always call 911, however, to report an emergent or crime in progress. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Tom Carter, our partner and Chief of Harrisburg City Police Department.
Thank you. I'm Commissioner Thomas Carter of Harrisburg City. I would just like to give appreciation to my two partners from one from Capitol Police, Commissioner Jacobs, and Lieutenant Commissioner Price. We have been gathering information due to the unfortunate situation of January the 6th, a never seen event that has happened in the history of our nation. Due to that, there's been intelligence coming in, where there's a planned event that's going to hit every capital city. Due to that information, we have all teamed up together. We all have different missions here. Commissioner Jacobs and PSP, they are tasked with guarding the Capitol property, the Capitol grounds, and I'm tasked with guarding the city assets. It'll be a usual day for us. We'll still be answering police calls. We'll still be servicing the citizens of the city. We are well prepared to take on anything that may or may not come our way the next couple days. We have partnered with the FBI. We have partnered with the National Guard. We plan on shutting down streets. I cannot disclose those streets, but I want to assure the citizens of Harrisburg that nothing will get into the neighborhoods. We've been getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of concerns, will the citizens of the city be safe? And I want to guarantee you right now that myself and my law enforcement agency, along with my other law enforcement partners, we're going to do everything that we possibly can do to make sure that all citizens of the city of Harrisburg are safe. We are tasked with shutting down City Hall and protecting the assets of the city, and that will be done. For me, I hope it is a drill of us working together. Anybody that wants to protest is more than welcome to come into the city of Harrisburg to protest peacefully. And we can't stop that. We understand that. But however, we are not looking to see or to get into any physical confrontation with anybody. We understand, that everybody has grievances. There's a way, to put those grievances out there. I'm personally asking that anybody that does decide to come into the city of Harrisburg onto the Capitol property, just to do so and to demonstrate peacefully and then leave. And, because we all want to, be safe. We all want to go home safe. We all want to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So, therefore, that's my ask of who's ever going to come here over the next couple of days, to fill some sort of grievances. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, yes, thank you. This is for, I guess, all three of you. Is there any information about any specific gathering directed at Harrisburg at the Capitol? Anything beyond the generalized threat that there could be these sorts of groups coming to all 50 capitals?
There are no specific threats to the Capitol or the Capitol complex. We are taking actions out of the abundance of caution to be prepared should any situation arise.
From the Pennsylvania State Police perspective, I would reiterate what Superintendent Jacob indicated. We have no specific intelligence relative to the Capitol complex. There's a lot of generalized intelligence, and we continue to scour various platforms incessantly in an attempt to get a very robust operational picture.
Thank you. Next up is Courtney Crawford from Fox News.
Hi, yes, I was just wondering how the impact of the social media crackdown has impacted how you guys do some recon and see what people are planning.
As Lieutenant Colonel Price, I can speak to that. Obviously, I suppose you would phrase it as potentially unintended consequences. The social media platform gave us a window into some of these activities. We still know that there's chatter occurring. There are so many different social media platforms, and we see migration of people from one social media platform to another as one shuts down, another one opens up. Message boards, they proliferate, but obviously the folks that are posting, we see the generalized postings of information, but people are less likely to post, and of course they realize that we see a lot of this information. It's publicly accessible, so that's become somewhat of a challenge. But it's not insurmountable for us. We do have other conduits that I wouldn't want to discuss, but to glean information.
Thanks, Colonel. Next up, we have Jan Murphy from Penn Live.
Hello, and thank you for doing this. I have so many questions, but I was just wondering, how does the state's open and concealed carry laws complicate or impact your response to this quote unquote armed protest, threat that we've been hearing? Does your planning to respond to this differ in any way from other protests that aren't advertised as armed protests?
Well, throughout each year here at the Capitol, we are used to dealing and working with groups that come here to the Capitol to display for their Second Amendment rights. They do come armed, which they under state law they are allowed to do so. They're allowed to open carry. So we are used to dealing with those groups. Like I said, they're probably here 3 or 4 times a year, and they have never caused us any problems. Naturally, what we saw in Washington, if that could have a difference on any groups here showing up with a different intent, we are well prepared to respond to that. So, but we are used to. We work with groups that come here armed all the time.
I just want to say, Jane, that Commissioner Superintendent Jacobs is correct. We have a lot of Second Amendment rights people coming here. They usually park over City Island and they walk through our city. For the most part, they are orderly. For the most part, there's nothing that we can do about that. So, hopefully, if they do come here, we hope that they're in the same mindset, that they're just orderly. They're here to speak their mind and that they want to, leave orderly too.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sam Zern from the PLS Reporter.
Hi, I'm curious for how long you plan to keep up this level of vigilance and any of the increases in staffing that you've made.
Yes, ma'am. Colonel Price, State Police, I can answer part of that, at least, to say that the resources of PASIC, our Pennsylvania Central Intelligence Center, the sort of intelligence gathering and intelligence sharing that we do there, really that, as I mentioned initially, that's ongoing. That's something that we do routinely and continually. We'll continue to share information with our local partners, with Chief Superintendent Jacob. In terms of actual manpower and staffing, we've elevated the alert level. I wouldn't want to provide any information as to when we will go back to normal operations, because certainly this is an evolving situation.
Yes, I concur with Lieutenant Colonel Price on that. For us, it's we're data driven with intelligence, and that determines a lot of it. What our plan on and how long we keep our assets at a certain level, and we're committed to go to the distance, whatever that is. We'll do it. Our job is to make sure that the complex, the Capitol itself, the people who work here and visit here are safe. So we're here for the long haul. So.
Thank you. Next up is Nick Volturo with CBS 21.
Just to kind of piggyback off what they were saying about keeping track on social media posts, I know there's always, a lot of chatter, and we're seeing a lot of, extremist type of groups. Like you said, I know nothing's really targeted per se that you have intentions of the Capitol building, but I mean, how concerning is it just knowing what took place last week and trying to plan, trying to strategize to kind of keep people safe in Harrisburg with the things that transpired?
So, Lieutenant Colonel Price, from our perspective, sir, and I think I would address that by saying these sorts of responses, right? These kinds of incidents, the kind of planning we do, the implementation of incident command system, working with Chief Jacob, working with other partners, working with Chief Carter, working with PEMA. When you have an ops plan that you put together for events like this, the whole purpose behind that planning, that pre-planning, that focus on looking for contingencies, that kind of plan is scalable and it's modifiable. So essentially, we have the plan in place, and we would hope and we presume, and based on experience, we've anticipated potential contingencies that would occur. And so by having that plan in place, it allows us to be flexible and respond regardless of the changing nature of what the event might look like. So I think based upon our planning preparedness, Superintendent Jacob mentioned intel-driven policing. We're certainly concerned about any sort of violence directed toward the Capitol or any of our infrastructure. But the plans and the planning is really the key to allowing us to react quickly to a changing landscape. And I think we're prepared to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jeremy Jenkins with WGAL.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. This question is for all three of you. I know you mentioned the measures that will be taken, like blocking off streets and getting extra resources out there in and around the city and the Capitol. But what about folks, residents or visitors who may be coming in to protest peacefully, or even lawmakers who work in the Capitol? What if they don't follow those guidelines? And for folks who just say, I'm just going to do whatever, what are the consequences there?
Go ahead, Superintendent.
Go ahead, Chief.
Go ahead, Joe.
We're as far as with being able to with planning for these two events coming up, a factor for us was that the House and Senate has closed, as has the Commonwealth Tuesday and Wednesday. So that helps us a lot. We've been closed to visitors due to the COVID. So it makes it much more manageable. As for the people that come, I mean, our agencies, the three of us, and we respect rights of citizens to protest peacefully. But however, there's no excuse for the disgraceful and the dangerous behavior displayed by those who rioted in DC last week. So those actions should be condemned by all and never condoned, and it will not be tolerated here at the Capitol.
Thank you. Next up is Dickie Nasser from KDKA Radio. KDKA Radio, you should have a request to unmute. All right, we'll move on to Harry Lee from WPMT.
Hi, everyone. I was just wondering, you talked about no specific threats, but the FBI has said that they are looking at threats in every capital. Is there any specific day where you're looking at more protests?
The one that naturally that we're following closely is the one that's been that we've been flyers we've been seeing circulated quite a bit on the internet, is a gathering for a armed march, for lack of better words, on our nation's capital for Sunday at noon. And the flyers refer to, well, if you can't get to Washington, go to your state capitals. So that's what's that's what we're following the most closely and preparing for.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, Sierra Darville from WJAC. Sierra, you should have a request to unmute. All right, we'll move on to Anna Orso from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Hi there, thanks for hosting this. Can anybody provide any additional details about the deployment of the PA National Guard? I know Superintendent Jacob mentioned that some may be deployed in the Capitol. I wondered if any would be deployed to Washington, or if those deployed would stick in Pennsylvania.
I mean, as far as our meeting with them, only assistance to us, to the Capitol Police, was discussed. I have no other information as far as the guard. That would have to be directed strictly to them. Our conversation was strictly to assets and ways they could assist us.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we will have Bill Kibler from the Altoona Mirror.
Thank you. This, I guess, could go to any one of you. Do you think the fact that the Washington riot has put people on guard all throughout the country will lead to those planning to do something in the next few days to do it more secretively than they would have otherwise, making it harder to prepare for that?
I think that that's very possible, Bill. I think that's why some of the chatter has stopped. I think that's why some of the platforms have changed. Right now, it's a chess game, and we're in it for the long haul. We're in it, to protect the assets of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We are here to do the right thing. We appreciate Second Amendment rights. We appreciate people speaking their minds, but we also appreciate, doing it in a orderly fashion, not what happened down in Washington at our U.S. Capitol.
Thank you. Next up is Taylor Romine from CNN. Taylor, go ahead. All right, we'll move on to Mara Barrett. 1 second, I'll send you a request to unmute.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this. Given what you talked about with the lack of social media organization, has there been any direct outreach to any people, organizers, groups that have protested at the Capitol in the past? If you've seen any repeat offenders, has there been any direct outreach or contact with them to learn about potential plans that way?
We do that on a normal occasions, because people they'll apply for permits naturally. So you have the contact information. So majority of the times we reach out for them to start a relationship with them, just give them the do's and don'ts, what they can do and and can't do on the property, and that has always worked well for us. But with the unknown on what we're looking at here, there's really no point of contact that we can find that we'd be able to reach out to a group to kind of talk to and make sure that if they do come here, that it's a peaceful protest. But we just don't have that information as we normally would do with every other protest here at the Capitol.
Gotcha. So just to confirm, you haven't reached out to anybody that might have been involved in those reopen rallies that we saw last summer or anything like that?
No, we have not. Again, because those ones usually they have always applied for permits to come here. So, but no, we to answer your question, no groups have we reached out to that have been here before. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Bob Brooks from WPVI.
Yeah, hey guys here. My question is, say these protesters that are armed show up at the Capitol and they start causing destruction. but they are armed and have visible weapons on there. How do you possibly prevent really just things getting out of control and a disaster from happening?
That's a very good question, sir. We're hoping that if they do come, if they are armed, that they respect what we're out here doing and what we stand for. We are prepared to take on any situation if it would occur, but we don't want that to happen. And as far as what kind of response will be given, that'll be up, to the Capitol PD to make that call.
Yeah, it is a difficult situation for us in law enforcement, responding to those, or dealing with these type of incidents. We're hoping anybody to come here does so peacefully. But our officers are highly trained. Our officers and troopers are highly trained, the professionals, and we will deal with what we have to deal with. We're hoping it doesn't come to that, but at no time will violence or vandalism or burglary to the building and anything like that. It can't be tolerated, and it won't be tolerated here.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Looks like Elisa Weiserma from CNN. Elisa, you have a request on mute. All right, let's go. Last question to Joseph Jafari from Spotlight, PA.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm just kind of curious. I know that you guys have been staging some barricades and everything around the Capitol, but what about staging areas for certain protests? I mean, during the Stop the Steal rally, we saw specific instances of 3%ers, Oath Keepers, armed groups surrounding Biden supporters. I mean, that seemed a bit out of control. Are there going to be staged areas this time, or is it going to be kind of a free-for-all?
What we usually do is for scheduled protest, when we get intelligence information that there's going to be a counter protest, we do set up an area for them to hold their protest. When a permit is issued here at the Capitol, they'll ask for the use of the Capitol steps. And when those are granted, then that group has that area for their group for that specific amount of time. Should a counter protest show up, then we set up an area that's not impeding on them for them to do their counter protest. The issue here is we are not issuing any permits, so there are no protests scheduled here. So if opposing groups show up, it's one of those situations where we monitor the situation, and if it comes to have to separate groups, I mean that's something that we have to do. But there are no permits issued for anybody to be here for any legal protest, which is why we wouldn't have a counter protest area set up.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all of our speakers today. Pennsylvania Capitol Police Superintendent Joe Jacob, PSP Deputy Commissioner of Operations Lieutenant Colonel Scott Price, and Harrisburg Police Commissioner Thomas Carter. And of course, thank you to all the reporters who joined us today. Have a good evening, everybody, and stay safe.